Alden Drake lives in a peaceful suburban house, hidden beneath the shade of ancient oak trees, with rustling leaves swaying in the wind. Every morning, the gentle sunlight streams through the window frame, blowing away the fragile mist on the leaves, decorating the picture of nature filled with dreams. In that space, Alden shares a simple life with Serafina Vale, a kind-hearted, gentle wife with a warm smile, along with breakfasts by a cup of fragrant coffee and cozy evenings by the family dinner table. Every passing moment is imbued with tender happiness, like a gentle song of life. However, within Alden gradually hides a nameless emptiness, a silent unease creeping through every thought. Although outwardly he always appears calm, with a gentle smile and eyes filled with faith, his private contemplations are like the whispers of the night wind, heralding something unpleasant about to happen. As the wall clock rings with its steady ticking, Alden wonders whether the perfect life on the outside is truly solid or just an illusory surface concealing deep flaws. In the small house with its pristine white walls and meticulously cared-for garden, the space filled with the scent of flowers and fresh grass, as well as the sound of Serafina's laughter, cannot obscure the persistent loneliness in his heart. There are mornings when, as the gentle dawn light filters through the curtains, the image of the fragrant cup of coffee beside his wife's kind smile is intermingled with a sense of coldness and emptiness, as if a part of Alden is gradually losing its life. He senses a strange interplay between simple joy and profound confusion, a sign that familiar happiness may not last forever. The sound of the wind blowing, the falling leaves scattered on the stone path, seem to whisper the secrets of the past that Alden dare not admit. In that quiet moment, he wonders if everything is just an illusion, that the happiness he has nurtured over the years is merely a fragile veil hiding loneliness and unease in the soul. Serafina is always a steadfast support, bringing him comfort through every gentle touch and tender word. Yet even then, Alden feels a silent void, like a question mark of a soul gradually drifting away from completeness. Amidst that tranquil atmosphere, in every rustle of the wind and every falling leaf, Alden carries within him a premonition that the present life may not remain as beautiful as the still natural picture he once believed in. That emptiness is not just a fleeting feeling, but gradually accumulates into a quiet mood, signaling a turning point, an unforeseen upheaval. Although everything outside remains radiant, and the simple, happy moments with family are still filled with love, deep down, Alden's soul seems to be preparing for an unexpected storm, a great change that will shatter everything like fragments of a beautiful dream. In the warm and familiar house, Serafina was always the harbor of love and comfort, the gentle light warming the evenings spent gathered around the family meal. She was the kind wife, always present like a solid wall against the storms of life. However, inside Alden Drake, although still living in that warmth, a void gradually appeared that could not be filled. The days passed with familiar habits, as Serafina's laughter echoed throughout the small house. But inside Alden, he gradually felt a deficiency, something that was slipping away among the pieces of a life meticulously arranged. He felt as if there were a small flame of unknown origin that had ignited inside him, yet was never lit by the safety of marriage. At work, fate led Alden to Isolde Raven, the woman with keen intelligence, a radiant smile, and fresh vitality. Isolde appeared like a cool breeze in the office space, bringing with her the breath of change, breaking through familiar boundaries. When they first met, Isolde's gaze painted a fresh, vibrant picture in Alden's heart that he had never experienced. Isolde's grace, confidence, and intelligence made Alden feel the strange allure of difference, an allure that seemed as if his heart was already crowded with old memories. The initial conversations with Isolde, even if only work-related, ignited in Alden a new flame. She spoke naturally, without constraint, opening up rich topics, causing Alden's mind to be stirred by every word she said. In those moments, he felt as if he were living again, as though the fading emotions from his familiar life were revived by Isolde's smile and sparkling eyes. Yet alongside that, in Alden's mind, conflicts that were hard to resolve intermingled, the new stirring, contrasting with the safe and stable marriage he had built with Serafina over many years. The subtle signs of instability began to appear clearly when Alden sensed that Isolde's attraction was not only in her appearance but also in her thoughts and unspoken desires. Every time Isolde smiled, her eyes seemed to hold a refined charm, causing Alden's soul to suddenly ignite with a desire to explore new things, even though that conflicted with the morality of a married man. He wondered if the deficiency he felt in his familiar life was the result of a gap that no one recognized, and whether Isolde was the key to opening the door to a world he had once dreamed of but dared not touch. Meanwhile, Serafina was always there, like a harbor of love and warmth, never knowing that in her husband's heart, strange, new yet conflicted emotions were stirring. She devoted all her love and care to the family, believing in every morning awakened by a cup of aromatic coffee and the evenings gathered around the family meal, without ever knowing that in a hidden corner of Alden's heart, emotions were gradually rising silently. Every day, when the leaves fell lightly in the garden, when the wind whispered softly through the window frame, Alden felt a subtle change, like a sign heralding something that was gradually rising within him. The encounter with Isolde not only brought new vitality to Alden, but also stirred up in him conflicting emotions. Isolde's allure made him realize that life was not only confined to familiar habits and the safety of a family home, but could also open up new possibilities, new joys yet to be discovered. Nonetheless, that joy was intermingled with the haunting sense of rightness, making him hesitate and oscillate endlessly between family responsibility and the new breeze of freedom. The desire to live fully with his truest emotions. Those new emotions gradually ignited a flame in Alden's heart, a flame that both gave him new vitality and served as a harsh warning for a relationship that had been built on safety. In every look, in every word from Isolde, Alden felt the invitation of another world, a world full of color but also full of risks, where dreams could come true, while at the same time shattering everything he had ever loved. And so, between the warm light of Serafina and the enchanting allure of Isolde, Alden began to confront the subtle signs of instability, the imperfect pieces of life, opening a new chapter full of conflict, where trust, love, and responsibility struggled to harmonize with every beat of his heart. In the period following the peaceful days of the family, Alden's soul gradually undergoes subtle yet distinct transformations. The mornings with sunlight filtering through the windows no longer seemed to bring him the same complete feeling as before. Inside, the subdued thoughts have erupted, awakening an unease and emptiness that he cannot deny. Previously, Alden had always been a calm, cautious man in every action. But now, small signs are beginning to appear, heralding that something is gradually moving beyond the confines of everyday life. At first, the private meetings and dinner outings after work under the guise of business with Isolde Raven were just ordinary events, exchanges of opinions in a professional environment. However, over time, those meetings gradually became frequent and prolonged to an inexplicable extent. Alden, who was once accustomed to order in life, began to spend more time in private conversations with Isolde. Meetings held in secluded spaces where dim light and soft voices created a distinct atmosphere far removed from the formal working hours. Every time he returned home, he carried with him a silent expression, vague explanations about work that gradually made the warm space of the house become empty and cold. Serafina Vale, the kind-hearted wife who had always devoted herself to caring for the family, gradually sensed a change in the way Alden treated her. The times when he promised to be home on time turned into missed appointments, with the scheduled meetings being replaced by vague, unclear explanations. Alden's absence at home gradually took its toll, leaving an unexplained void, making Serafina feel that something was amiss. She tried to seek comfort in familiar routines, but inside a quiet unease crept in, signaling that the pieces of the family life were gradually being disrupted. Furthermore, Subtle details only increased the suspicion. Every time she entered the study or the living room, Serafina encountered a strange perfume, a scent unfamiliar to the days of their previous cohabitation. That fragrance, alluring and hard to resist, was like a silent sign that Alden had found something new, a different emotion that had never before appeared in their lives. Along with that, the accidental messages that appeared on Alden's phone, the soft words, the phrases that sometimes carried an inexplicable intimacy in the context of ordinary work. Each message was like a small piece contributing to an undeniable picture. Alden's relationship was gradually moving beyond the boundaries of a long-established cohabitation. In every private meeting, under the guise of professionalism, Isolde's eyes always exuded warmth and zest for life, something that Alden once felt but now had become irresistibly alluring. Every time they talked, Isolde's voice seemed to resonate with gentle melodies, carrying the allure of novelty, of a world beyond the safe boundaries of marriage. In that secluded space, Alden seemed to find a new zest for life, a vast emotion that, though he knew he should not, he could not stop his heart from stirring. That sweetness, intermingled with vague explanations about work, made each return home increasingly difficult, as Alden's eyes became distant and silent, as if holding secrets he could not share with Serafina. Those clues gradually accumulated, forming a series of small events that could not be ignored. The strange perfume was not only a fleeting scent, but also evidence of the presence of something unexpected, a difference that Alden tried to keep hidden. The accidental messages that Serafina happened to see, the sweet and delicate lines of text, further highlighted the conflict in her mind. In the quiet moments of the evening, when the space became subdued and every sound seemed to diminish, Serafina couldn't help but wonder if she was living with a husband whose heart had drifted along another current, a fresh and unfamiliar current of emotion. Amid all these, the instability gradually emerged. Every private meeting, every dinner outing after work under the guise of business were like small pieces contributing to the overall picture of a relationship that was slowly transforming, moving beyond the boundaries of a secure cohabitation. Although Serafina continually strove to maintain warmth, the gaps, the unclear explanations, and Alden's silent absence only made that picture become faded, full of unfillable voids. And in Alden's mind, between the light and dark of those encounters, a small mystery had gradually formed, a change in spirit and behavior that no one could deny, signaling that his relationship was veering toward a point of no return. Alden Drake, who once lived in the tranquility of a happy family with Serafina Vale, gradually lost his way into a journey of conflict when he met Isolde Raven. Through each initial meeting within the framework of work, when Isolde's radiant gaze shone like the early morning sunlight seeping into the soul, Alden gradually sensed the allure of something new, a source of life far removed from familiar habits. The private meetings, the dinners after work hours, originally hidden under the guise of work, gradually became so familiar that no one could discern any obvious difference. Within Alden's heart, every moment of conversation with Isolde seemed to ignite his heart, making him feel as if he were living again, as though the emotions faded by time and the hardships of life had been unexpectedly awakened. Every time he came into contact with Isolde, Alden felt a new joy rising within him, a joy that he had never experienced before. Isolde's charming smile, subtle eyes, and gentle words opened up a world full of color, where the emotions, long buried, seemed to be revived. However, alongside that fresh joy, a profound sense of conflict, of an unnamed sorrow, also welled up within him. Every time he sensed Isolde's allure, Alden was swept into a frenzy, but at the same time, the remorse for his beloved wife, Serafina, surged incessantly. He knew well that Serafina, who had always been by his side, building a warm home and giving all her love, deserved loyalty and respect. Through each encounter, the relationship between Alden and Isolde grew deeper, like a cool stream flowing through a person's heart, bringing new excitement, yet leaving behind invisible scars. The moments with Isolde were sweet and full of life, but at the same time, they were when Alden had to face the heavy burden of regret. In Isolde's radiant eyes, he saw freedom, boundless joy, but he also saw himself gradually losing the core values of a sustainable marriage. The private conversations, the soft words, and the intimate gestures had become undeniable signs that Alden was delving too deeply into an extramarital relationship. Within him, the frenzy ignited by Isolde had made everything become chaotic. The fresh joy intermingled with a pang of remorse between the revival of emotions and the unforgivable betrayal of Serafina. Every time Isolde's gaze met his, Alden felt as if he were living again, but at the same time recognized the terrible price of this change, the price of betrayal. He wondered whether that temporary joy was strong enough to compensate for the pain he would bear when he realized the consequences of his actions. In those lonely hours after their meetings, when the voice of his heart murmured words of regret, Alden wondered whether he had truly found new life or was merely lost in the maze of conflicted emotions. That feeling of being reborn, although initially giving him new excitement, gradually became an overwhelming burden as the remorse for Serafina crept into every thought. He remembered the warm evenings by the side of his gentle wife, remembered the affectionate words and the enduring shelter of Serafina, all now like precious memories blurred by the tears of regret. The allure of Isolde, although bringing a fresh breeze, made him question the value of what he was gradually losing, the disintegration of a relationship that had been built with both soul and love. The moments with Isolde were not merely instances of joy. They were also when Alden had to face the deep-seated sorrow, the sorrow for the betrayal he had brought upon himself. Every time he parted from Isolde, when his eyes were filled with silent tears and unspoken remorse, he felt the harsh tug of war between the new emotions and the enduring love of the past. It was an inevitable turning point, when the moments of passion with Isolde gradually replaced the complete memories with Serafina, slowly eroding the solid foundation of his family. With each encounter, Alden plunged even deeper into the extramarital relationship, as if there were no escape from the conflicting frenzy. That feeling of being reborn, while making him experience the thrill of a new life, simultaneously forced him to bear the unending remorse, the pain of having betrayed the woman who had always loved and built their home. Within Alden, a small battle between joy and regret raged continuously, eventually becoming the decisive turning point, opening up a new path filled with fragments and sorrow that he would have to endure forever. Those signs, although subtle, were undeniable, completely changing the structure of his life. The relationship with Isolde, which initially was just simple meetings, had now become a mental burden, reminding him every time of Serafina, the one who had always been the harbor of love and safety. The passion, the remorse, and the struggle of emotions had transformed Alden's life into a complex picture, where new joy was always interwoven with hard-to-heal emotional wounds. And so, in every moment, between the dazzling light of new life and the gloomy darkness of the past, Alden gradually realized that the turning point of this relationship was not merely a fall into passion, but also a hidden sorrow, a conflicted resurgence that he would have to bear forever. In the days following periods full of contradictions and instability, Alden Drake's life gradually began to fracture as the pieces of love and responsibility started to be disrupted. The care and attentiveness that were once devoted to Serafina Vale, the kind-hearted wife and the warm haven of his life, were gradually replaced by private meetings and quiet moments with Isolde Raven. Isolde, with her alluring smile and bright eyes, increasingly occupied the spaces that once belonged to Serafina in Alden's life. The private meetings and extended dinners under the guise of business gradually turned into occasions for Alden to lose his way, for his heart to be swept away by the intoxication of novelty and difference. Each time he returned home, Alden carried a silent expression, his eyes growing cold, and no longer as warm as before. That change needed no words, no explanation, yet Serafina, who had always accompanied and nurtured the family home, quickly sensed it. Her gentle eyes gradually became anxious when she noticed the gaps in the daily conversations. When Alden's explanations became vague and lacked sincerity, she realized that the gentle talks that were once full of love had now turned into scattered words, feeble excuses that did not fully account for her husband's spiritual absence. In the small house under the shade of oak trees, where every corner bore the marks of sweet memories of the two, the distance between Alden and Serafina widened. The evenings at the family dinner table, once filled with laughter and warm stories, now turned silent, suddenly missing the essential pieces needed to complete the picture of happiness. The negligence, the coldness in the way Alden spoke and behaved, were like small cracks at first, then gradually spreading, creating an atmosphere of tension that both could clearly feel. Serafina, with her sensitive heart and understanding soul, began to notice obvious changes in her husband's attitude and behavior. She remembered the old days when Alden always wore a gentle smile and his eyes brimmed with faith. But now there were only general explanations, hesitant words when asked about work or the unexpected meetings he frequently pursued. She gradually realized that, although the cause could not be clearly identified, every one of Alden's answers contained an absence, an emotional void that had not been there before. That silent discord gradually accumulated, becoming a deep-seated pain that Serafina could no longer hide, despite her constant efforts to maintain her spirit and her faith in the once exhilarating love. In moments of silence, when the warm lights of the living room reflected on Alden's tired face, Serafina sensed an entire world of unspoken emotions. The sighs, the small gestures, a lingering gaze, a turn of the back, all gradually became clues that could not be ignored. Every time the phone rang, every time she saw Alden hastily leave the room, Serafina's heart felt squeezed by fear and a sense of betrayal. Those signs needed no explanation. They existed on their own like silent scars on the soul, intensifying the tension between the two. Meanwhile, Alden gradually sank into the moments with Isolde Raven, the woman who had brought him a new zest for life, but simultaneously planted seeds of confusion in his heart. The private dinners, the meetings outside of work under the guise of business, were not only occasions for Alden to converse, but also times for him to forget the burdens of family life. Isolde, with her gentle words, sparkling eyes, and captivating presence, seemed to have taken a part of Alden's heart, the part that had been wholly dedicated to Serafina. Every meeting with Isolde, every moment shared as if igniting a new flame, only deepened the distance between Alden and Serafina. Alden's world was now divided into two realms, one full of fresh, vibrant emotions with Isolde, and another quiet realm, filled with warm memories, but gradually turning cold with Serafina. Alden's inner conflict seemed to become an unbalanced scale, where fleeting joys made up for a long-standing deficiency. When he returned home, the worry hidden in Serafina's eyes, the pain of betrayal gradually emerged. Alden's vague explanations, incomplete answers, and his absence during important occasions like birthdays or special family events further severed that gap. The increasing tension between the two worlds was not only a matter of differing attitudes, but also a collision of two souls. Serafina, though always maintaining a calm exterior, harbored surging emotions inside that could not be contained. She sensed the change in how Alden treated the family, the care and attention gradually fading, making way for meaningless promises and unconvincing excuses. Every time she looked into her husband's tired eyes, every time she listened to his incomplete, cold voice, Serafina felt as if an important piece of her life was gradually being lost, leaving a void that nothing else could fill. In the heavy atmosphere of the once warm home that was filled with happiness, the pain and sense of betrayal gradually piled up, creating an unspoken tension that neither could deny. Alden, though experiencing moments of ecstasy with Isolde, felt the price of that division in every return home, in every silent moment facing Serafina. the price of silent moments and words insufficient to erase the longing. Sometimes, under the dim light of the living room, when everything fell silent, as if awaiting an explanation, the atmosphere seemed so heavy that it could be cut with a knife, affirming that things were no longer as they once were. Each passing day, the meticulously arranged pieces of life were gradually disrupted, the spaces of love and trust replaced by signs of discord and inner conflict. Alden increasingly struggled to maintain the balance between family responsibilities and the fresh breeze of emotions with Isolde. The care and love that were once the solid foundation of the family were now being eroded by time and private meetings, leaving behind cracks that were difficult to mend in a relationship nurtured over many years. Those signs, though initially very subtle, could no longer hide the obvious changes in Alden's attitude and behavior. His absences, vague explanations, and unclear meetings gradually created an atmosphere of silent tension, where each person felt the pain of loss and division. Both Alden and Serafina seemed to be living in two separate worlds, one of past warm memories, and another of a new world filled with contradictions and unhealed pain. Amid those distances, the atmosphere of the home that was once a warm haven grew heavy with silent words, eyes no longer fully filled with love, and small gestures that only spoke of the rising unease in the heart. Serafina's pain gradually became visible through every tear shed in the dark, through every unspoken lament when facing her husband's coldness. And Alden, though feeling a new zest for life from his moments with Isolde, could not deny the price to pay, the price of betrayal, of the fragments in his heart that, whenever recalled, weighed him down with more sorrow. In the midst of that tension, the family atmosphere gradually became divided, where intimate moments at the dinner table, warm laughter were replaced by haunting silences and explanations that were never enough. Both Alden and Serafina felt that, despite their attempts to hide it, the pain and loss had deeply imprinted every corner of their home. The discord gradually erupted, like a silent storm threatening to erase everything built with love. In every moment, when the yellow lights cast long shadows on the wooden floor, when the sighs of the wind echoed through the gaps in the windows, the loneliness and the tug-of-war of emotions became even more palpable, as if the entire house was sharing the pain of an incomplete relationship. That was the pain of betrayal, of past promises, and of trust that had faded over time. And among those pieces, no one could say that the discord had not left its mark, that the gap between Alden and Serafina had not grown deep and treacherous. Each passing day, old conversations gradually turned into silent words, unspoken questions posed between the two. The tension required no words, a single look. A small gesture was enough for everything to become clear. And in that atmosphere, Alden gradually realized that his actions, the private meetings, the incomplete explanations, had created a gap that no one could fill. The care given to Isolde, though bringing him a new sense of life, simultaneously stripped away the enduring values he had once cherished with Serafina. With each day that passed, the pain and sense of betrayal piled up, creating a heavy atmosphere where both could not avoid the clash of conflicting emotions. It was at that moment when every step, every word, every smallest gesture became a testament to the gradual separation of two people who had once built a home together. And amidst those voids, both Alden and Serafina had to face the truth that love and connection might only be fragile illusions, easily dissolved over time. Those signs, though extremely subtle at first, later became evidence of an irreversible change in a life, between the light of the past and the darkness of the present. The relationship between Alden and Serafina now seemed divided into two distinct worlds, where pain and unease continuously rose, etched into every moment of their shared life. And in that atmosphere, the sighs, the silent looks, all echoed the affirmation that, despite attempts to hide it, the gradual eruption of discord had become inevitable in their lives. In the cold space of the spacious living room, the dim light from the ceiling lamp reflecting on the white walls, Serafina Vale sat in deep thought with eyes filled with sadness. In her hand was a collection of sheets of paper, letters, emails, and undeniable clues, each small piece of evidence carefully arranged, like pieces of a heartbreaking picture. Previously, Serafina always believed that the love and sincerity of Alden Drake would be the solid foundation for their family life. But now, when the faded sheets of paper appeared before her eyes, everything seemed to shatter like fragments of broken glass falling to the ground. Every line, every word written in those letters and emails revealed to Serafina a cruel reality. The sweet words, the stories full of promises about an extramarital relationship, were no longer vague words, but had now become vivid evidence. She felt every vague explanation, every incomplete justification that Alden had ever given. Each piece of evidence, though small, was a mental shock, causing her heart to shatter into pieces, leaving behind silent tears. After arranging all the clues, Serafina stood up, her eyes wet with tears but full of determination. She knew that, no matter how painful it was, the truth could not be denied. Thus, with all the courage gathered in her soul, Serafina decided to confront the husband she had loved for so many years. She left the room, each step slow but firm, heading toward the study where Alden frequently hid his secrets. When the study door slowly opened, the faint light reflecting on Alden's face, the man Serafina once knew with a warm smile and gentle eyes appeared. But now, his gaze revealed confusion and worry, as if knowing that the truth could no longer be buried. Serafina stood there in a heavy silence, then gently placed the collection of evidence papers on the desk. She did not need to say a word, for each sheet of paper, each line of text on it told a clear and painful story of betrayal. That silence did not last long. Finally, Alden turned around, his eyes meeting Serafina's, eyes filled with inner conflict between remorse and fear. She began, her voice trembling but decisive. Serafina said, "Everything can no longer be hidden, Alden. I have known it all." Those words resounded in the small room, making the atmosphere even heavier, as if every speck of truth was falling everywhere. Alden tried to stutter, tried to find excuses, but his responses became clumsy and lacked weight. "Serafina, I only wanted, I never meant to hurt you." Those words rang out, but were no longer enough to hide the brutally real traces of betrayal. In that moment, between two people who had once shared so many warm memories, the pain and betrayal arose like a fierce storm, sweeping away every remaining hope. Serafina, her voice choked with emotion, continued, "Your words are now nothing but empty regrets. I have seen everything, every line, every promise you made to Isolde. I no longer believe in you." Those words were like sharp knives, cutting through every fragile strand of trust that Serafina had once given to Alden. In that moment, the entire room fell silent, with only the sound of sighs and silent tears falling on the wooden floor. The dialogue continued, from Alden's confused explanations to Serafina's incessant cries. Every word, every sigh seemed to emphasize the shattering of a relationship that had once been nurtured with years of love. Alden, with a remorseful, sorrowful face, tried to add, "I know you are in great pain. I know you deserve a more sincere love, but I have lost my way. I truly regret it." Those words echoed, but could no longer salvage the cruel reality before their eyes. Serafina, with her sorrowful eyes, just listened silently, without needing any more words. Every cry, every tear that fell, was evidence of betrayal, of promises past, and of trust broken. In that moment of parting, Serafina's pain was not only the hurt of her heart, but also the pain of her soul, a soul that had given everything for a love that now had been betrayed beyond repair. The confrontation between the two, between Alden's words and Serafina's undeniable evidence, turned the familiar space into an emotional battlefield. In that atmosphere, there was no room for forgiveness, no space for vague hopes, only the ultimate pain of loss and of trust betrayed. Finally, after those moments of dialogue filled with tears and unspeakable confusion, both gradually realized that the relationship had nothing left to salvage. The shattering of trust, the painful separation, had become an inevitable destiny. Serafina, with the resilience of a woman who had once loved and sacrificed with all her heart, was forced to make the decision to part ways, so as not to live in deception and unending pain any longer. In that moment of parting, Serafina stood by the window, her eyes sadly gazing outside, where the night winds carried the murmurs of the past. She knew that, no matter how hard she tried, nothing could soothe this pain. She had chosen to leave Alden, to leave behind the regrets, the vague excuses that were now nothing more than echoes of a love that had crumbled. Alden, with eyes heavy with regret, stood silently watching as Serafina's figure left, as if he realized that he had lost the most precious thing, the trust, the love and the shelter of his gentle wife. The space in the room suddenly became empty, with only the sigh of the wind and the echoes of the past remaining. Both Alden and Serafina now embarked on a new path, a path imprinted with pain and separation. Though the warm memories were still deeply ingrained in their minds, the truth that could not be denied had caused everything to dissolve like morning mist. In the final moment of the dialogue, Serafina turned back, looked at Alden one last time with eyes cold yet determined, and then gently said, "We have come to the point of parting, Alden. Our love is no longer strong enough to compensate for the betrayal. I am breaking up." Those words resounded like the conclusion to a tragic chapter, closing a relationship that had once been nurtured by years of love. Alden stood there, helpless before Serafina's words, as if each word was a knife cutting deep into his soul. In that moment, he could find no explanation sufficient to ease the pain, no ability to justify what had happened. The separation, though tragic, had become an unavoidable truth, the fate of a relationship lost between passion and remorse. When Serafina left the room, stepping out on her own path, Alden stood silently, his eyes heavy with regret and his heart filled with unspoken apologies. In his heart, a storm of emotions exploded, but could not change the destined outcome of the relationship. Everything, from the private meetings with Isolde to the vague excuses, had now turned into fragments that could not be pieced back together. The shattering of trust had etched itself deep into the souls of both, transforming them into different people with emotional wounds not easily healed. That was the fateful moment when all the excuses, all the apologies became meaningless, and the cruel truth exploded like an uncontrollable storm, sweeping away every remaining hope. In that gloomy space, amidst the sighs of the wind and the dim light of the room, the relationship between Alden and Serafina was officially broken. The separation was not only the end of a past journey, but also a painful turning point that opened a new chapter filled with wounds, where each would have to bear the consequences of unfixable mistakes. That was an indelible emotional scar, evidence of betrayal and loss that could never be reversed. When the room door slowly closed behind Serafina, the echoes of the past still resonated in Alden's mind, as a reminder that everything was no longer as it once was. And in that moment, amidst the heavy silence and unspoken pain, both knew that the relationship had broken forever, irreparable by any promises or apologies. This was the end of a love that had once been radiant, but then crushed by betrayal and overwhelming remorse, leading to a painful, fated, and unavoidable separation. After 3 years of separation filled with longing and regret, on a cool afternoon in a park shaded by green trees, Alden Drake accidentally encountered Serafina Vale, both, each carrying countless memories and the pain of years gone by, inadvertently met on a stone path leading to a quiet corner. In that space, Among rows of leafy trees and the chirping of birds, Serafina stood with a small boy, a child with clear eyes and an innocent smile that suddenly made everything around seem to burst into light. Standing there, amid the gentle rays of sunlight filtering through the foliage, the boy named Everett appeared like an unbelievable image, a piece Alden had never known existed, a child born in the final weeks of a marriage he once thought had ended forever. When Alden's gaze met the youthful face of Everett, he felt overwhelmed by a torrent of mixed emotions. The initial shock merged with an unnamed confusion, leaving him standing motionless in the park, where every gentle breeze and falling leaf seemed to echo reminders of a past long gone. His heart, which had once borne the scars and regrets of past mistakes, now felt compressed by an unexpected force of fate. Everett, the child Alden had never known, born in the final moments of a marriage, had become the embodiment of a painful truth that he could no longer avoid. Serafina, with a calm appearance and sorrowful eyes, gently approached Alden. Her footsteps echoed softly on the stone path, as if each step carried the pain of years of separation. In her eyes emerged a mix of pride and deep sorrow as she softly raised her hand, pointing to the little child playing nearby. "This is Everett," she said, her voice trembling yet determined, as if affirming everything that had come before. Those words resonated in the air, making Alden feel as if time had stopped in that moment. Every second seemed to stretch endlessly as the past and present merged into a painful yet romantic tableau. In Everett's eyes, Alden saw both innocence, joy, and the sorrow of a life untold. That little boy, with his silky hair and pure smile, opened up a new horizon for him, a stark warning that the mistakes of the past always leave consequences that no one can escape. In the midst of confusion and dizziness, Alden could no longer hold back his tears, and an emotional, tearful conversation began to blossom between him and Serafina. In the quiet atmosphere of the park, with the murmur of the wind and the rustle of leaves softly brushing the ears, Serafina gently began, "You once said you would always be by my side, but now everything has lost not only our trust, but also our love." Those words cut through Alden's soul like a knife, making him acutely feel the deep pain of past mistakes. He tried to offer apologies, vague explanations that he had once used to cover everything up, but now, before the stark image of the child and the sorrowful eyes of Serafina, all words became meaningless. During the dialogue, every spoken word and every falling tear testified to the pain of a love that had shattered. Alden, his voice trembling, uttered, "I was wrong, and I know it. I regret not recognizing the value of what we had, of you and our family." Serafina, with a soft yet sorrowful voice, replied, "Our love is no longer what it used to be. Alden, I have endured too much pain, too much betrayal, and now, seeing Everett, I realize that the past cannot be reversed, cannot be fixed." The conversation continued in moments of silence, as memories and images of a once happy life intermingled with the present pain, seeping into every word. Every time Alden attempted an explanation, Serafina would silently look into his eyes, as if his words had lost all their weight and meaning. Meanwhile, Everett ran about, oblivious that he was the living witness to all the mistakes and losses, to a once brilliant love that had now become the darkness of regret. In that moment, between the weak light of the sunset and the shadows of memories, Alden realized that the responsibilities of a father could no longer be avoided. The birth of Everett was like a shock of fate, forcing him to face all the consequences of past mistakes. The duty of parenthood, the love of a father for his child, gradually emerged as an inescapable truth. Alden understood that, no matter how painful the past was, he could not go back, could not erase what had happened. He had to move forward, though his heart was full of tears and regret, to embrace a new responsibility. The responsibility of a father, of a man who had once erred but was now ready to learn to love and care. In that moving moment, as the gentle wind threaded through every branch, and Serafina's eyes reflected deep sorrow. Both Alden and Serafina confronted an undeniable truth. Their relationship had been deeply wounded, and Everett, the child Alden had never known, was the consequence of those mistakes, living proof of a past that could never be reclaimed. Everett's appearance forced both to re-examine themselves, to face painful memories, yet also to hold on to hope. That tearful dialogue marked a turning point, forcing Alden to realize that love is not only the sweetness of shared moments, but also the responsibility, the sacrifice, and the capacity to endure inevitable losses. Both of them, in that moment, bridging the gap between past and present, recognized that there was no way to turn back, yet a new path could be found amidst the ruins of their mistakes. As the crying gradually subsided, in the emptiness of the park, Alden stood silently, looking into Serafina's eyes and at Everett's innocent face. The tears, the words that could not fully express the pain, transformed that moment into an indelible memory. A memory of a shock of fate, of a parental responsibility suddenly awakened after years of separation. And in that silence, both Alden and Serafina understood that this was not only the end of a shattered chapter of love, but also the beginning of a new one, where each would have to bear the consequences of their mistakes and learn to live with responsibility, with pain, but also with the hope of a brighter tomorrow. After the fierce storms of the past, when the emotional wounds had not yet healed and were still deeply imprinted, Alden Drake decided to begin a new journey to atone for his mistakes and rebuild the shattered life. With the support of his few friends and his own self, Alden began to participate in psychological therapy, where each conversation, each healing exercise not only helped him better understand his inner self, but also opened new doors for change. Each therapy session was like a precious piece, helping him learn how to be a father, how to nurture trust and love for Everett, the child he had never known, but who now became a symbol for a second chance at life. The conversations did not stop at merely admitting his mistakes, but also opened up lessons for Alden about patience, compassion, and the ability to forgive himself. While Alden was striving to change himself through psychological therapy and learning how to be a father, Serafina Vale, the woman with a heart that had endured so much separation pain, also continuously rose to affirm her self-worth. Even though her heart was still weighed down by sad memories, Serafina gradually found solace through art, paintings, poetic works that carried her soul, like pieces that helped her regain herself. With every stroke, every verse, she gradually affirmed that her self-worth did not depend on the past or the wounds that had occurred, but on the inner strength and self-reliance that she continuously cultivated. Those small but steady steps helped Serafina gradually recover from the pain of separation, so that she could stand up and confidently face a new life. In the process of healing and reconnecting, both Alden and Serafina gradually realized that, although the emotional wounds were still there, those very wounds opened up opportunities for them to create a unique co-parenting relationship, built on the spirit of cooperation and genuine love for Everett. No longer were they fragments of a shattered past. The relationship between the two was now gradually being nurtured with sincerity, with relentless efforts to put the interests of their child first. Every time they shared moments with Everett, from afternoons playing in the park to warm family meals, they gradually learned to forgive each other, learned to start over. Every clear laugh of Everett was like a healing medicine, helping both forget the fragments of the past and move toward a new future full of hope. This journey was not easy at all. It was a long process filled with countless hardships, with failures and moments when it seemed there was no escape. But day by day, hour by hour, Alden and Serafina gradually realized that true strength does not come from denying the pain, but from the ability to rise after each fall. They learned to listen to the voice of their own hearts, knowing that every wound, every tear that falls, is an indispensable part of the process of growth and transformation. Together, they not only created a nurturing environment for Everett, but also built the foundation for their own future. A future where the past, although still there, was no longer a barrier preventing them from moving forward. In the gatherings, in the gentle conversations between the two that gradually changed, they began to rediscover trust in each other, to rediscover themselves. Serafina gradually opened her heart to share her deepest emotions, the dreams that had once been extinguished by pain, and Alden also learned to share, to listen, and to know that a good father is not only someone who can fix his own mistakes, but also someone who knows how to cherish and love his child as a precious gift. With every step, with every challenge they faced together, their co-parenting relationship was gradually strengthened by love, empathy, and a spirit of cooperation, values that could never be washed away by time or bitter memories. Along with the process of recovery, Alden and Serafina also gradually learned to forgive each other, learned that from deep wounds, new seeds of happiness could sprout. Every day, every passing hour, they together rebuilt trust, together created a new home, where love and empathy were not just for one person, but for the whole family. They knew that the road ahead was not smooth, that the emotional wounds might always remain. But what was important was that they had chosen to live, chosen to love, and chosen to move forward together. In the warm twilight of a peaceful afternoon, when the soft light covered every corner of the house, Alden and Serafina sat together at the dining table, silently watching Everett playing joyfully. That simple happiness, although it could never completely erase the pain of the past, was evidence of the power of transformation, of human ability to rebuild a new life from the ashes of mistakes. In those moments, they sat silently together, and then from that silence, love and trust ignited again, like warm sunbeams after a storm. Over time, Alden and Serafina's journey of redemption and rebuilding life was not only a process of personal healing, but also evidence of the power of forgiveness, of the ability to be reborn from emotional wounds. They learned that, no matter how painful the past was, everyone has the right to start over, to create a new future full of hope and love. And from then on, every day, in the light of trust and empathy, they continued on a new path, a path where the past was no longer a burden, but became the inspiration for them to love and live every moment to the fullest. After years filled with sorrow and challenges, the journey of raising a child together by Alden and Serafina gradually opens a new chapter, where unhealed wounds are worn away by time and forgiveness. Through meetings and anxious moments spent beside little Everett, both gradually realize that love is not only the sweet moments of the past, but also the strength to overcome a cruel past. Alden, once submerged in regret for irreparable mistakes, begins to seek healing through psychological therapy and lessons in parental responsibility. He recognizes that although past decisions shattered their home, his responsibility toward Everett is a second chance for him to become a better father, a man who can learn to love and care for his child more completely than ever before. Serafina, the woman who once carried so much pain from betrayal in her heart, gradually rediscovers her self-worth through art and independence. Every brushstroke, every creation she produces is not only an expression of her unadorned soul, but also a testament to her resilience in overcoming deep wounds. Although the pain of separation remains like scars that cannot be erased, Serafina has learned to transform it into inner strength, turning every tear into a seed of hope and faith in a brighter future. Amid challenges and trials, both Alden and Serafina come to realize that forgiveness is not only a gift for others, but also a precious gift for oneself. Through the process of raising their child and relentless efforts, they gradually form a united relationship, nurturing Everett's life together and placing the child's interests above all. Although they cannot return to the past or erase previous mistakes, they know that they can only move forward, rebuilding lost values with love, sincerity, and unwavering determination. The final image of the story emerges in the warm light of a small family gathering, where tears blend with smiles of hope. Alden, with gentle eyes and a face that bears both the past and faith in the future. Along with Serafina, a woman who, despite having endured immense pain, has maintained her resilience. Look ahead together with the belief that from deep wounds, the seeds of new happiness will sprout. The transformation from sorrow to inner strength is not only their personal journey, but also a testament to the second chance in life, showing that if one knows how to forgive and change, a person can be reborn and move toward a radiant future, even remarry and build a new family based on sincerity and love. In that moment, amid the laughter of children and the warm eyes of loved ones, the story of Alden and Serafina concludes like an epic filled with emotion, where pain is no longer an obstacle, but becomes the driving force for their rise. The final message of their lives is this: from deep wounds, if we know how to forgive and learn to live again, we can find new happiness, can be reborn into a true and enduring love, a second chance for hearts that never give up hope.